Money Rocks, where we expose crime, corruption, and shocking betrayals of public trust.
I'm Eric Bowling, and welcome to Money Rocks. With the anniversary of 9/11, tensions are running high with the Ground Zero at the building of the Ground Zero Mosque. There are planned protests at the site, and the NYPD has called up a, quote, army of extra officers to help keep things under control. Opinions have been strong on both sides, and tonight we'll hear from our all-star panel. On the left, we have attorney Joey Jackson, Inside Scoop radio host Mark Levine, and on the right, Fox News contributor Andrea Tantaros. We're going to get to the panel in a few minutes. Hang tight. Stay with us. But first, let's welcome Pamela Geller from Stop Islamization of America. Now, Pam, you're holding a 9/11 event. What's it all about? Set the stage for us.
Tomorrow at 3 o'clock on the corner of West Broadway and Park Place, we're holding a human rights rally, a remembrance rally of those who were slaughtered 9 years ago and against Islamic supremacism.
I noticed some of the families of people who lost loved ones in the World Trade Center were saying don't hold it simultaneously with the 9/11 tribute. Is that the reason for your 3 o'clock?
Well, it's well after the memorial services. I considered moving it, but I was implored by many scores of 9/11 family members who will be speaking not to move the rally. We have many human rights activists speaking from Sudan, Coptic Christians, Muslim Iranians. This will be an effort to appeal to the imam to move this Islamic supremacist mosque in a building that is Ground Zero. Not 600 feet from Ground Zero, Eric. It is Ground Zero.
It is Ground Zero. I agree with you 100%, Pam Geller. Hang in there for a minute. We're going to get back to you in a minute, but with us now from the NASDAQ site is New York Representative Peter King. Representative, this day hit you hard. You lost a lot of people from your district. They were killed on 9/11. Set the stage for us, sir, from your perspective.
Well, I lost probably 150 friends, neighbors, constituents on September 11th. To this day, it's a tragedy that's ongoing. I mean, I can't walk more than a few blocks without seeing a street sign, which is named after a police officer or firefighter who was murdered on September 11th. You go to church, you walk into the families, you go to a diner, you go to a bagel shop. I mean, the relatives, the parents, the brothers, the sisters, the widows, the widowers, they're everywhere. And it's a tragedy that's going to live with us, but so will the courage. So will the courage of those who sacrificed so much on September 11th, and also those who are still sacrificing today, those who became ill at Ground Zero and have these horrible, debilitating illnesses today, those who are fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. So to me, the memory of 9/11 will always be there, and I certainly will do all that I can to help those who were there that day. And also, I am, of course, right now involved also in the whole issue involving the mosque.
Sir, well, let's go. You brought it up about the Ground Zero Mosque. First of all, would you agree it is Ground Zero Mosque?
I believe it is. I mean, the fact that the landing gear went directly from the plane to that building makes it almost part of the crime scene. I also believe that to be barely 500 feet from Ground Zero, to be a 13-story, $100 million edifice, certainly it'll be a dominant site there at Ground Zero. And I believe it's being put there as far, to make a statement, not to build bridges, but to make a statement.
Representative, no doubt you read the Imam Raouf's op-ed in the New York Times from, I believe it was Wednesday. We actually went down to the Ground Zero Mosque site to rebut that op-ed. In it, he uses the words like, at a terrible cost. In other words, if we not force him, but really push him, or even if he chooses to move the mosque on his own, it may be at the expense of Americans abroad. He came out on CNN, talked to Christiane Amanpour on ABC. Also, 3 different occasions he's been fairly insightful. Does that concern you?
Yes, it does. To me, it's almost as if he's blackmailing or threatening the United States. And somehow, if his mosque is not approved or if people speak out against his mosque, we have to worry about being attacked by Islamic terrorists. And to me, our country is too strong for that. And we don't have to be proving ourselves to anyone around the world. We've allowed more freedom for Muslims and Catholics, Protestants, Jews, all religions and all non-believers in this country than anywhere in the world. I don't think there's any country in the world where Muslims have more freedom and opportunity than they have here in the United States. We don't have to prove ourselves to anyone. We certainly don't have to measure up to some standard set by an imam who said that the U.S. was a co-conspirator on 9/11, or an accessory to 9/11.
Exactly. There were several comments from earlier, I guess, in the year, and then several comments post 9/11, where he actually almost, I guess he said that Osama bin Laden was, I think he said, I hate to do this wrong, but made in the USA. Is that right?
He did, which is not true at all to begin with. And secondly, to be saying that so soon after September 11th, to me, showed a tremendous callousness and an indifference to what we were going through. I mean, can you imagine somebody in the 1940s, after we learned of the atrocities that were carried out by Hitler, saying, well, perhaps the Jews were also accessories to this, or after Pearl Harbor, saying that the U.S. was an accessory to Pearl Harbor? No, this to me shows that that he has very mixed feelings, and that there's a whole idea of being a bridge builder I just don't accept.
All right, sir. Just give us a quick minute on what are you doing at the NASDAQ site, sir? Yeah,
which is entirely separate from the mosque. Let me make that clear. I'm down here with the Post 9/11 Foundation. There's a gentleman here with me, Charlie Wassel, who was a Marine. He was also a police officer who became gravely ill at Ground Zero. The Post 9/11 Foundation is set up to, first of all, help those who served at Ground Zero, to memorialize what was done, and also to provide a continuing care and support for those who are at Ground Zero, and also those veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan, those who are fighting terrorism around the world. I'm proud to be here.
Representative King, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
All right, Pam, I want to bring you back into the conversation now. Also joining us from Washington is the chairman of the new Black Panther Party, Malik Shabazz. But first, Pam, take a look at this map of the Ground Zero area showing where body parts were found. We're going to throw it up. That's the lower Manhattan area. You can see red dots. If you look carefully, you can see some red dots. The interesting part is there's a dot that shows where the proposed site of the Ground Zero Mosque would be. There are no red dots there, Pam, but there are no red dots there because they haven't checked it for body parts yet. Also, take a look at this piece of landing gear that crashed through the roof. Mr. Peter King, Representative King, referenced that. That's a piece of the landing gear from one of the airplanes, crashed right through the roof of the Ground Zero Mosque. Is this the kind of stuff that drives you crazy, Pam?
Well, don't spit in our face and tell us that it's raining. Clearly, he's threatening us with jihad, and this idea of that they'll respond to us with violence just validates the whole idea of the ideology behind the 9/11 attacks. Is it not the same thing? And where are you going to draw the line? Where are you going to draw the line where if we do this or we do that, we have to be afraid of getting attacked? You have the Muslim Student Association who wants halal cafeterias, who wants segregated gyms and segregated dorms. And what happens if we don't do it? Is that going to piss off the jihadis?
Well, let me bring in Mr. Malik Shabazz, sir. Could you give us your reaction to a couple of these images that we're showing on the screen?
I can't see what you're showing on the screen, but I can tell you that this whole attitude of intolerance and bigotry towards Muslims in America is very ignorant and it's immature. And you will not be able, it appears, to move the mosque. The President of the United States said they had the right to build it. And so therefore, I think you should take the opportunity to learn more about Islam and the valuable contributions that Islam has made to American society and the value that Islam has brought to the world.
Sir, all due respect,
that would be wise.
All due respect, we've spent a lot of time, we've had a lot of guests, we've done this story for a good portion of our show every night for the past month, sir. We've had all points of view. What do you object to? I'm not sure what you're saying. Am I an Islamophobe? I'm trying to let me ask you that.
Yes, I think that what Americans need to try to do is to understand why is the Prophet Muhammad, the bust of the founder of Islam, inside of the Supreme Court? Why is the George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and the early American presidents, why were they Shriners who studied the Quran and studied Islam in secret? So there's not been the dialogue to learn about Islam, nor the dialogue to learn about Muslim suffering.
Well, sir, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Allow me to do this. Listen, for the record.
You got to learn.
For the record.
You got to learn.
I was down there. I was in the World Trade Center. Our audience knows all about that, and I'm not going to rehash that. I've asked for the Imam Rauf, please move the mosque. I want you to move it. I understand you don't have to. We're asking you to. On the same token, sir, in the same vein, I would say the same exact thing to the pastor Terry Jones in Florida, in Gainesville. Don't burn the Quran because it's insensitive. My point is, don't burn the Quran because it's insensitive. Also, move the mosque because building one there would be insensitive as well.
Well, I think it's also insensitive to Muslims. And I think as much as we are being asked to empathize with the victims of 9/11, we should empathize with the victims of predator drones and innocent Muslims who are being murdered by hundreds of thousands across the earth.
All right,
so
Pam,
if we would take a
Pam,
mature approach, if we would take a mature approach and study the suffering of the oppressed and the Muslims, as well as the suffering of white Americans, then we could have a dialogue that could make sense and stop this madness.
Islamophobia is a fallacious argument used to shut people up. There is no reciprocity. We're constantly being schooled in this hypersensitivity in the Muslim world, this extraordinary sensitivity. You can run the Danish cartoons, and the media didn't in a somewhat self-enforced Sharia. You can't say the Prophet Muhammad on Comedy Central. You can't run.
But when are we? But man,
you can't run. Wait, I'm speaking. I'll let you speak, sir. You can't run the Prophet Muhammad in a Huggy Bear costume. So we have this hypersensitivity to the Muslim world, and yet there's no reciprocity. Where is the mutual and mutual respect? Where is the mutual and mutual understanding? Where is the tolerance? And I have to tell you something, sir. This idea of 75% of the American people are deeply offended by this, sir. They're deeply.
But not the blacks.
It's deliberately. There are many people of all colors that are deeply offended by this.
But not the blacks. But guess what? But not the blacks, because in America you say you love Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was a Muslim. And so blacks are not as upset. Blacks are not as upset. Well, okay, well, if you love Muslims, then let them build the mosque and learn. If you want to study anything from 9/11, try to study why some Muslims are mad at America.
Pam, please, sir.
Study why some Muslims are mad at America. That would be productive and therapeutic.
Mr. Shabazz, I'm not mad at Muslims. I'm simply saying the mosque, Ground Zero mosque being built on that location is insensitive. Don't do it.
Okay,
equally as insensitive would be burning the Quran in Gainesville. I'm saying don't do that either.
I don't
Why
say
do you
that,
say
I
one
don't
is
say
okay
that they're
and one's
equal.
not?
I don't say that they're equal, that they have a right to build there, and you should take it as a learning experience to, again, learn the contributions of Islam to America.
Why are we always being schooled?
And
why isn't it a two-way street?
Islam is at the root of Western civilization.
This is a basic, look, you can't, this is a basic fundamental pain. And it's not extraordinarily, listen, I've been studying Islam for 9 years, and it's not about Islam. It's about this idea of building a 15-story mega mosque named Cordoba, which, by the way, is iconic of Islamic conquest on the West, looking down on the cemetery, the graveyard of Ground Zero.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Where is the proof that Muslims were behind 9/11? Where is your proof?
Osama bin Laden said so.
Osama bin Laden has not even been charged with the crime. You can go in the lobby of FBI headquarters.
Are you disputing that the 19 hijackers were not
I
Muslim?
don't know how the worst crime on American soil that they say took place, really the Black Holocaust, but that they say took place on American soil took place, and nobody has even been brought to trial and been convicted of the crime.
All right, hold on,
sir.
Zacharias
Musawi said it wasn't even connected.
Guys,
so where's the proof? Where's the proof that Muslims were behind 9/11?
You're not leaving. Stay with us, sir. But Andrea, weigh in on this. I mean, this is a really heated debate. It always comes down to people yelling accusations. Where are you on this?
Well, the philosophy that I'm getting from Mr. Shabazz is more of a philosophy of radical Islam. We're supposed to learn what they're doing. We're supposed to understand, and they're justified by flying planes into the towers, like he said, because they were mad. They were having a bad day.
No, I did not say that. I said
Islam,
they had nothing to do with it.
I said you spoke most of the segment. It's my turn.
That Muslims were involved.
Sir, it's my turn, please.
Mr. Shabazz, hold on.
Moderate Islam preaches tolerance. Moderate Islam appeals to Muslims when they are the minority in a society that is predominantly non-Muslim, not to sow discord and not to divide. You say this is a bridge, this is a one-way bridge, and there is proof that one of the financiers gave money to a terrorist organization. That's the smoking gun. It's a question now of national.
Hang on, go ahead.
What about this smoking gun?
Mr. Shabazz, hang on, sir. We got more panelists.
I got a smoking gun for you.
We'll get to your smoking gun in 1 second, but let me get to the panelists. Go ahead, Joe. You want to jump in?
Eric, thank you. Listen, let's talk about the debate, and let's be fair about what the issue is here. The issue is not lack of tolerance. I don't think anybody on this panel, right or left, correct me if I'm wrong, is suggesting that a mosque should not be built. Is that what the suggestion is?
No.
I think the suggestion is that it may be more appropriate to build a mosque in an area which represents more sensitivity for all. And I think 9/11 should be taken as an opportunity to do just that. Now, to be clear, very quickly, Eric, the fact is that we have amendments, we have a constitution in this country that allows us to exercise our rights to be freedom of speech and everything else. I'm with that, amen. However, when you have a mosque being built on hollow ground, which is essentially a graveyard, I think it's fair for people to raise objections and raise issues and say, build a mosque, just not there.
One more, guys, getting here,
Okay,
Mark.
I understand, and I can
One
understand.
more, sir.
I was with Malik Shabazz
understand.
until he started to say that Osama bin Laden wasn't involved in September 11th. I have no doubt of his involvement. I have no doubt of that murder.
You have no proof.
I guess
no proof.
to cite the great philosopher Rodney King, I want to say, why can't we all get along? Because here I hear from you and the guest, Pam, and you talk about the fact that they're demanding halal in cafeterias. What's so wrong with demanding a food
Hold on. I don't want to do this. I want to get to Mr. Shabazz. Pam, please, hang in there, guys. Okay, go ahead. Where's the smoking gun, sir? Here's your opportunity.
I understand you being, I can understand some being upset, don't get me wrong. But be just as outraged that the United States is best friends with Saudi Arabia, and Bush and the bin Laden family have been in bed together, and that bin Laden and the Taliban were funded by the United States and the CIA. Stop the hypocrisy over 9/11 and look at the big picture. The United States is behind as much as what you call terrorism.
Sir,
I
invited you on to talk about the mosque, to talk about the issues. I didn't invite you on to do some 9/11 truther pitch right here on my show. I don't like it at all.
No, because you're blaming the Muslims for 9/11, and the proof is not so clear. Others blame Bush.
Sir, I'm not blaming Muslims for 9. I'm not blaming moderate Muslims. I'm blaming radical
You're blaming
Muslim
some Muslims, but
extremists for 9/11.
Why hasn't
That's what I'm
anybody
doing.
been arrested? Why hasn't anybody in America been arrested for this incredible act?
Musali,
they're
dead.
They flew into planes. I'm sure the investigation goes on.
All of a sudden, if they were from Saudi Arabia, why do we still have relations solid, all engaged relations with Saudi Arabia?
Now you do have a point, because we buy a lot of oil from Saudi Arabia. That may have something to do. Go ahead, Pam.
And that's where
you say the hijackers came from.
Is right twice a day. Look, the bottom line is this was an act of war. This was an act of war, and 3,000 precious souls were slaughtered that day in the name of Islam. Now, not every Muslim. We're not blaming every Muslim. He sounds like he's blaming every Muslim. Well, I have Muslims speaking at my rally tomorrow.
We may lose your satellite window. I apologize to you, sir. I'm not cutting you off. But here, I have a question for you. You know, you look at Fort Hood. You look at Times Square bomber. You look at the Zazi brothers in Denver and Queens. These are radical Muslim extremists. These aren't Christians. These aren't Hindus. They're Muslim.